Land sharks and germicides. Welcome back to Curiosity Forge. I am the Curiosity in the Forge. It's been a couple weeks since I've seen you guys. I've been busy. So over the course of last week, I went ahead and took care of two more of the projects that were outstanding in the path to finishing off the tomahawk. Or at least finishing off the tomahawk attempt, because I don't know how it's going to turn out. One of those is I finally finished the hammer that I made with Alex Hanneman at Quad State. And what I did with this is, you can see we got the head of the hammer. This has been heat treated, it's been wire brushed within an inch of its life, and I got a handle hung on it. And the light's not doing it a lot of favors, but what I've got here is a Purple Heart handle with a mahogany wedge. And I didn't use Purple Heart because it's the best hammer handle material. It's because I wanted to be all extra. So I have a hammer I made with my own two hands and an exotic handle, and it is good to go. And I don't know if y'all can hear this. Let's see if Scam Likely is calling me again. Yes, Scam Likely is calling me again. So they can wait. The other thing that I did is I finished off the 8-pound sledgehammer head that James, Sprinkled Donut Forge. He gave me the head and a new handle at Quad State back in September. And the head had some really bad mushrooming and splitting, and it was a rusty mess. So it's been cleaned up well enough, and the mushrooming has been cut off so that it's safe to use again. And it's ready to rock and roll on the striking anvil and the guillotine tool. I have two things left to finish. The thing we're going to work on today is I'm going to work on making a small hammer eye punch. I'm going to have to use mild steel because that's what I have. To my limited understanding, it should work well enough for one or two projects, provided I keep the metal cold and I don't have any compunction about hammering it back into shape if need be. It'll be a little extra work, but it should work just fine. The hammer eye punch that I have is every bit as big as a drifted out hammer eye. It is huge. The billet that I'm working on is particularly small. If I use that punch, I am going to pull a plug that leaves me with nothing to drift out to support the faces of the eye on this tomahawk. The other half of that billet, I think I want to turn that into a small round flat, and that's going to be a special project in and of itself. More news coming on that once this tomahawk is finished. Other interesting news, a while back I offered to make a kiridashi from scratch for a friend of mine in exchange for a painting. I kind of gave him free rein on it, and he settled on a painting of Hephaestus working with his hammer, as Hephaestus is the god that forged Achilles' shield. If I understand correctly, I could be wrong. But the painting is finished. I'm going to do an unveil video of that because that's getting hung up in the war room. And I believe I have talked the artist into also making prints available, because I want to buy at least one print for myself to put in the shop. I don't want to put the original painting in the shop because that would be stupid. It's not going to be a huge painting, but it's very cool. It's got a very, very interesting 70s vibe to it. I really like the I like the old school vibe, we'll put it that way. I can't really articulate what I'm thinking with it, but that's okay. But with all that being said, we're going to go into the shop, and I am going to start working on hammering out this drift. And it's going to be a small stubby drift with a handle on it, kind of like we used at Quad State, so that I can get this thing drifted out and get ready to start isolating the faces and getting everything else ready to go on it. I will need to regain my train of thought. I'll need to cripes. I am drawing a complete blank. Oh, I'll need to draw the billet down a little bit more, get a longer a longer profile so that it's long enough to support the eye and have something to isolate on either end of it. And then I will look at whether I want to just do straight 4140 or if I want to try to forge weld a high carbon bit in there. I'm not exactly sure yet. I'll deal with that when I get to it. But with that, let's head to the shop. All right, folks, so quite serendipitously, the piece of steel that I thought I was going to use, I didn't like the dimensions, but stumbled across this chungus left over from buying out a guy's shop a few years back. I have no idea what he was doing with it, but I was able to knock off some almost completely unstuck welds right here and grind everything back. So this end right here is going to become the hammer eye punch. It's going to get cut short and welded to a stick. So I can hold it here, smack it, do what I got to do. And the only thing I'm trying to do is make enough room to get the business into this in there. And this will have to be touched up on the grinder and hammered back out. But this is my current hammer eye drift. And as you can tell, it's been through some hammers. Not all of them were mine. This is one of the classroom hammers from Quad State that I took home with me after buying it for a used price, because I'm a genius. But I'll be back when this is hot and we'll take a few heats on it, and you know the rigmarole by now. Be back in a bit. While we wait for this thing to finish heating up, it's getting there slowly. A word or two on this. The Purple Heart handle. Purple Heart is a very, very, very hard wood. The reason this is a rounded off rectangle is because it flat out did not want to grind. I was trying to do something far nicer looking and it just wouldn't cooperate. And my patience wasn't there. But the fact that it's this hard means it transfers a lot of shock into your hand right here whenever you hit steel with it. That also means this thing may split apart on me at some point in the future, and if it does, that's something I'm willing to deal with. I just wanted a Purple Heart handle on something. I love exotic wood. Purple Heart's one of my favorites, so I had to do this. But that being said, don't let this be your green light to go ahead and do something that is inherently a flawed idea. This handle may hold up for the rest of my life. It may split clean down the middle 30 minutes into the use. You know, I haven't done a whole lot with it yet. I've taken a couple of heats, but we're going to remedy that now because I'm going to use this to start shaping this and see what happens. But yes, lots of shock transferred right here. It's not the most comfortable thing in the world. Working on here is tapering this in down to a fairly small point so that I can shape everything into something resembling a small hammer eye that will fit that drift. So that's going to be the next handful of heats. And this is a bigger piece of steel than absolutely necessary, but that's so that when I strike on this end right here, wherever I cut it off, there's some mass there to support this being pushed through another piece of steel. There's a method to the madness. Back in a couple of heats. where we're at with it so far. Getting my tapers drawn down pretty nice. Once I get this a little bit closer to a point, I'm going to start flattening this out, pushing these sides out, and making it a little more ovoid. But I want this to be a fairly small point. I'll be back in a bit. Alright, the tip's getting to be where it's like grinder range. I took one more heat on it, but we're going to flatten this thing out now. Alright folks, there we have the basic shape of the head. And basically all this is going to do is get sharpened down to a point right here. And this should punch out a small enough plug that I have enough steel left on either side to stretch out with the full-size drift. Although this might drift it out quite a bit itself once it makes it past the plug stage. Either way, I think this is the shape I need. So I'm going to go with it. And once this cools down, I'm going to take it to the grinder and get it cleaned up and ready to be put to use. And then I'll weld my handle on. So that's it for right now. I'll be back once this is cooled down and ground and cut. Okay folks, so I have got the punch itself cut down to size. I've got my handle cut and chamfered right there on the end, which I know picture quality is not the best, but until I figure out how to deal with that, we're stuck with it. So what's going to happen here is I'm going to weld this together with the Rob Garmin honorary stick welder. I'm going to try something. I read the box when I was most of the way done with the striking anvil, and it says that these rods are rated for 20 to 45 amps. So I have this thing cranked down to at least what the gauge on the box reads is 40 amps. And I'm going to see if that doesn't result in a cleaner weld with less porosity and hopefully good bead penetration. And we'll just have to see what happens. I mean, if it doesn't stick, I can grind this stuff back and crank the power up and have really ugly welds that'll at least, in theory, hold together. But I'm going to go ahead and clamp this thing up. And I'm also laying it down at an angle, so I'm doing more of a flat weld than I would be. And I'm going to see if that doesn't help, just basically rocking it back so that I'm only coming in at this angle instead of this angle, trying to get stuff welded up. And yeah, I don't have this aimed directly at the weld because I'm not sure it would serve much of a purpose. But I'm going to set this bead and clean it up, and we'll take a look at it, and then I'll come back when everything's done and show you the finished result. And hopefully this will be a sanely quick video. Okay, so I don't think they like arcing at this low of power. Give it a few extra amps. I don't think it likes me right now. Come on, you son of a motherless goat. Okay, so clearly it's not happy with something. It won't actually do anything besides glue itself down the instant it even thinks about coming close to it. So I'll just come back when this is done. I am clearly fighting with this, and I will be for a little while. Okay, I'm making progress and I'm learning what works and what doesn't work. One of the things that this welder seems to like is being cranked up to around 85, 90 amps, somewhere on that window. Even though the sticks don't seem to want to do that. But the other thing is I have to drag the bead real slowly instead of doing what I was taught with the bigger ones and kind of feather it side to side a little bit. If I just drag this straight and I get everything right, then I get a nice clean bead with no porosity or slag inclusions. But I just got to practice some more with that. At the very least, these beads are better looking and a hair more confidence inspiring than the beads on the striking anvil, so I will take the progress happily. Progress, not perfection. And this will be the last bead that I run on this thing, and then I may have to at some point come back and heat this up and move the handle around a little bit. Ah, you suck! Well, I think that did it. So I will zip this clean, do whatever minor adjustments I need, and then we'll go back to the war room and take a look at the finished product. Hi! Alright, we are back in the war room, and we have a finished handled hammer eye punch. And I am reasonably confident this is going to do what I need it to. This is a small enough profile to get in there and punch a very, very small plug out without basically destroying the eye. And this is going to open the eye up right here just enough to get the drift in there. And I can drift it open as far as I feel is suitable for it once all that's said and done. And the welds here, they aren't pretty, but they are better. We've got some good clean beads like that one hiding in there. So basically that's also more learning about how the welder does what it does happily. At the very least, that was an easier welding process than the striking anvil was, and had I known that it preferred just having a straight drag on the rod, I would have been through that striking anvil so much faster. It's way easier to do. And it feels wrong because that sure didn't work with the welders and stuff I had in weld class. Not the way I wanted those beads to look. So that is the next stage in the Tomahawk project. The only thing I really have left to do is decide whether or not I want to modify the bottom of the guillotine tool to fit the Hardy on the striking anvil, or if I'm just going to clamp that thing down there with some big C-clamps and call it a day there. I may just do that to save myself some headaches until I feel like buying tubing and welding it on, because, again, that's yet another weld, yet another opportunity for failure, and it's taken me a while to get to this point. So, I just wanted to show y'all where I'm at with this project. And of course, that is a mild steel punch. So I'm going to have to keep it cooled down. I'm probably going to have to visit the grinder quite a few times and probably hammer it straight a few times. But these billets aren't going to be more than maybe an inch on each side, so it's not going to take too much time to punch them out. That should go pretty fast. Realistically, I only expect this punch to last through the next 2 projects. And once we're through with those, anything I get after that's a bonus. And I mean, this was made with stuff I had laying around the shop. You work with what you got. So I will be back hopefully within the next week to start working, or to pick the Tomahawk back up. I need to cut the handle I put on there off and re-weld it. Especially now that I've got a little bit better grasp of slinging the welder. Get that handle welded back on right so that I can draw that billet down to where I want it, and then drift it, and then start working on isolating faces. I believe I have my order of operations figured out, and hopefully that'll go pretty smoothly. And like I said, I don't know whether or not I want to play with forge welding just yet. I don't have any track record with forge welds outside of a couple pieces of Damascus. So I don't know whether I want to just finish this as my first Tomahawk project or roll the dice on a forge weld. Especially seeing as how I haven't ever forge welded anything quite like that, and I don't know, like I said, whether I want to really push my luck on it. So with that, if you made it this far, thank you so much. I will catch you guys later. Remember, stay safe in your shops. You are the softest thing in there. Praise the forge and pass the borax. Have a great day.